Hello, everyone, and welcome to the League One podcast from the lower league. Look, I'm back this week after my little bit of illness last week. Seb held down the fort incredibly well, and thanks to Sam for hopping on last week. And yeah, so Seb, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Glad to have you back. Sam was an adequate replacement, but we did miss you last week. But yeah,
It doesn't beat two Yorkshiremen.
clearly not. You feeling all good this week? Yeah, feeling better.
Yeah, back to normal now. Back to normal and back to the football.
Good stuff.
That's the way.
And
Yeah.
lots,
So this week, go on.
lots to chat about as well. So you picked a good
Well,
week to come
exactly.
back.
Yeah. I was diving straight back in because, as you said, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to have a look back over the weekend's games, first of all, and then in the second half of the show, we're going to have a look ahead to tomorrow night. There's 8 games in League One on Tuesday. I mean, I say tomorrow when you're listening to this, it might be Tuesday. So tonight for those people. So lots to talk about. We'll start. I don't think Seb would let me start anywhere else but this game. The game he was at, Barnsley fans, Seb, you won 2-1 against Derby. Huge game for the sort of the promotion push and the situation there. And it was a brace from Adam Phillips. Saw you over the line.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it didn't start great though. I'll be honest. Barnsley went 1-0 down. It was Sonny Bradley from a corner for Derby. To be honest, Derby before that just had a corner cleared off the line, and then it was cleared out for another corner, which they sort of scored from, which was really annoying. But even when we went 1-0 down, there was this sort of feeling around Oakwell really that it wasn't really going to be the end. You know, there was going to be this fight back.
Yeah.
There's going to be this comeback. You know, we've seen it at home in the past couple of games. But we have gone down to an early goal through, be it an individual mistake, through it be just a lapse of concentration, or the team not quite being at it straight from the off. But when that goal did go in, there was that same sense, same belief that it wouldn't finish 1-0. There were going to be more goals in it, and there were going to be more goals in favour of Barnsley. So yeah, I think overall, I really cracking, entertaining game. A great advert for League One football. And have you seen the Phillips equaliser goal? Did you see that goal?
No, I've
No.
not watched the highlights
Oh,
from it
it's
now.
honestly it's a cracker. So he takes it just outside the box as a cross comes in. It's cleared by Cashin, and Phillips is just on the edge of the box, about 20, 25 yards out. Chests it, lets it bounce, and then just hits it. In fact, no, I don't even think he lets it bounce. He might do. I can't. I've seen it that many
Too good to
times.
not let it bounce.
Well, I know. I've seen it that many times. I sort of saw it in the flesh, and then I looked at it so many times. I can't remember what he does, but anyway, he chests it down, and then I think he lets it bounce once, and then the right foot finish right into the top of the corner, into right in the corner past
Fantastic.
Wildsmith. And that was the equaliser, and then the winner came from a corner in front of the four, well, more or less 5,000 travelling fans at Oakwell. But yeah, massive game, and pretty entertaining to be fair as well. You know, we
Mm.
highlight Barnsley, and rightfully so. You know, they took the chances. Adam Phillips, as you said, with the race. But I am a bit concerned about Derby. They were playing. I don't know if I should say this or not, but I am. I'm a bit concerned about them. I shouldn't be concerned, but I am. So the sort of match Barnsley up with like a 3-4-1-2 formation, and the sort of the most attacking two were Mendes Lang and Lewis Sibley, not out and
Mm.
out number nines. Obviously, Mendes Lang is a winger. I think it's over 11 goals a season, and
He's
Sibley
fantastic.
is
He's having a cracking
he's a
season,
centre
Mendes
mid. He
Line.
is having cracking, but it just wasn't clicking for him tomorrow on Saturday, and
Mm.
the reason for that is because he's being played out of position. You know, he's a winger. He's a great winger, but he's been asked to play the striker role for Derby, but he's not a striker.
So they were
He's
missing Collins then, would you say?
Yeah, well, Collins is out injured. He got injured in the match before,
Mm.
and who's the other one? They're struggling for strikers. Washington is also injured for Derby. Waghorn is injured but might be back in the next couple of weeks. So they signed Dwight Gale in the last week. So he came on as a sub, and so Derby went to one at the top with an out and out number 9. But you can just tell Gale, having not played a lot of football in the past year, 18 months when he has been at Stoke, you can just tell he was just slightly off. He had a great chance right near the end, which a lot of Derby fans thought was in, but it wasn't. But when they went to an out and out number 9 top, Derby did look better. Mendes line was able to go back out the wing, cut inside like we've seen him do so many times. But before that, there was a lot of concern for Derby in the way that they played, the way that they attacked the game. They were only really threatening from set pieces, and that's where they got the goal. In terms of sort of the rest of the play, they were just struggling up front, massively struggling up front.
It's with. I think you put it down to the injuries, haven't you? It's they've got some big losses, and then Collins, like we mentioned there, he's one of the best strikers in the league, isn't he? And you're missing someone like that, you're going to struggle, I think, to create as many as you did before. You said you was a little bit worried about them. They're not in bad form per se. That Barnsley game before that, they'd only lost one in their last 8. Barnsley, on the other hand, 5 games unbeaten now, and that puts them 3 points off the automatic. So it was a really big game, and so Derby were trying to put daylight, wasn't they, between sort of Barnsley and the automatic spot, but they didn't quite manage it. And maybe one of those you look in and it looks, it's the best result for someone as a neutral because it's made it tied to at the top, hasn't it? And it's a 3-4 horse race, isn't it? A tight race for the automatics.
Yeah, really tight. It was 4th versus 2nd, 6 points before the match started, separating Derby from Barnsley. But as you said, it's now been cut to 3 points between the two, and Barnsley 3 points off the automatic promotion places with a game in hand. Although that game in hand is against Bolton, who's sitting 3rd. So it's all sort of heating up. As you said, 4 teams in it now. Portsmouth, sort of running away with it in 1st, Derby 2nd, Bolton 3rd, and now Barnsley 4th. So yeah, I sort of predict, as a Barnsley fan, which I am, I'd have been happy with a point before the game. Don't get me wrong, I'd have wanted the 3 points, but just the form Derby wrong, the quality that Derby have within their sides, you do always worry. You do always worry. If Mendes Lang is on it, he's on it. If Hurrihan and Bird in the middle are on it, it's threatening for defences in League One. But they just didn't turn up really on Saturday for large periods. But yeah, the injuries have hit them and they've hit them hard. Whether Dwight Gale was the right signing, I'm really not sure it was. I think they've just bought him because there's no one. Well, they've not bought him. He was released from Stoke on deadline day. I think they've just brought him in because there's
just
no
to
other
fill
options.
the gap.
Yeah, just to fill the gap. Really, they need an out number 9 with the way they've been playing. Yes, they've played a back 3 a couple of times this season, but they've played back 3 with an out number 9. And it showed on Saturday that they were missing a focal point up top. Whether Dwight Gale does bring you that, I'm really not so sure. But I think Barnsley overall did deserve that victory, and they're a real possibility now for automatic promotion.
Yeah,
they are. I think we've gone under it, and I'm not just saying this because I think generally they have gone under the. I promise I'm not. They have we have gone under the radar this season. But as you said, 5 unbeaten now in the league. Just beating Derby. Coming to a great run of form, both home and away now, picking up points, and sitting in 4th. So it's looking rosy, and March is looking very, very busy for the Reds. So if we can get through March, I think we'll be absolutely fine. There's 2 key fixtures. There's the match against Bolton, which takes place next Tuesday, and then at the end of the month, 23rd of March, is the game away at Portsmouth. So some big fixtures in March. Overall, there are 7 games for Barnsley in just 29 days in March. So March will be very busy, but very crucial for the Reds.
That's it, yeah. And you've mentioned Bolton. You can take off the Barnsley hat now because we're going to move on to Bolton. It's a very busy month, like you say, next month, and I'm sure we'll be talking about all the matches once we get there. But one of the other matches to pick out from the weekend just gone is Bolton. They went 1-0 up actually away at Blackpool and lost 4-1. They had Ricardo Santos sent off. The score was 2-1 when he was sent off. And then in the last 25 minutes, Blackpool added a couple. So it was a 4-1, a really big loss on paper when you look at the scoreline. And it's Bolton's first loss since the 20th of January, 7 games they had in the league. Their only loss in that period was also against Blackpool, that on penalties in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. So it's an interesting one that sort of this good run has come to an end and come to an end in such emphatic fashion for Bolton.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive result for both teams. You know, for Bolton to lose at the way that they did, down to 10 men. Yes, it's disappointing. Yes, Ricardo Santos has only actually just come back from injury, and as soon as he comes back, he gets sent off. So disappointing in that regards. But for Blackpool, it's a massive statement victory again for them. We spoke about, me and Sam covered them last week slightly, just on the edge of the playoff spots. They just have to keep winning just to sort of tick along and just hope that a team around that area just slip up. And well, I said last week, I think they'll be the one to sneak in ahead of Stevenage and Oxford. But it's a great result there for Blackpool, and one that I think they'll be very, very happy with. You know, Beasley on the score sheet twice, Ekpateta from the back, and Lawrence Gabriel with the fourth as well for the home side. But massive win for Blackpool and for Critcher's men. And if they can use this result to get some sort of momentum to try and push for the playoff spot, which is what they'll be wanting. On the other hand, Bolton will be very disappointed. You know, they've got Barnsley, who we just discussed, chasing up the backs really. They are in a real danger of, if not wanting to use this result as some sort of landslide. But yeah, to lose so emphatically will be a concern. Yes, they had 10 men, but it's still a big loss for Ian Everett's side. So
Definitely.
yeah. Do you think what do you think? Do you think it'll have a big impact on them, or do you think it's just a little blip?
I think it's one of them. It probably looks worse than it is with the fact that they've shipped 4 goals. I mean, it's one of the things. I guess more on a broader point, that the difference between a 3-1 loss and a 4-1 loss is that it's only 1 goal, but it sounds so much worse. Like if you lose 3-1 or 3-0, it's like that's a bad result. And then as soon as the 4th one goes in, it's like it's diabolical. You know what I mean? I guess it's one of those things.
I was wondering where you're going there. Difference between 3-1 and 4 is 1 goal. I was wondering where you're going there.
You have to stick with me on these sort of things. But no, I think it's an interesting one in that it's all about how they bounce back, isn't it? It really is all down to that. If they can bounce back straight away and come back with a win, then you forget about it. And if they go on and they lose the next one, then it is a big loss, isn't it? Because they've not been able to recover from it. And what you mentioned about Blackpool, I think it's really interesting. They're 4 points off the playoffs with a game in hand. I mean, that race for the last playoff spot, if we're sort of assuming Peterborough will stay in the playoffs, is a really tight one. And we'll talk about a couple of the other teams in that hunt as we go through the podcast. But there's some really interesting sort of, I guess, plays with that, and a big game on Tuesday night with Leyton Orient and Blackpool that we'll talk about in the second half. But one of the other promotion, the playoff chasers, is Stevenage. They're back to winning ways, won 1-0 at home to Wickham. The captain, Carl Piagani, with goal. Their real captain's contribution, that isn't it? Sort of pulling through 1 goal in a 1-0 win. He's the one to score it. It's always a good sign, I think, for a captain. And they were 5 games without a win before that, and it's got them back on track, I think, Seb.
Yeah, I mean, they've not won in the league since the start of the month. So the 3rd of February, they beat Blackpool at home. And as you said, poor form, really. You know, losing to the likes of Reading and Bristol Rovers in that run. Yes, they lost to Derby, but Derby are a good side. So a good win to sort of pick them up back on form. They'll be hoping that they can use that as some sort of springboard They are only 1 point outside the top six, so very, very close.
And 2 games in hand as well.
Yeah, 2 games in hand on Oxford, who are currently in sixth place. So they are definitely one to push, and having this has been mentioned many times this season, having Steve Evans as that leader, as the manager. I think everyone wants Steve Evans. Yes, we can get really annoyed with him. Yes, the stuff he does, we don't always agree with him, but ultimately he's a winner, and he knows what it takes to win football matches, and he knows what it takes to sort of push for those playoff spots. He did it last season in League Two with them. Push for the promotion spots. This time, I think he'll do well to settle for a playoff spot. Whether he does or not, I'm not quite sure myself, but no doubt it's a massive win for his side against a solid Wickham side. I think Wickham would probably what's the term, disrupted by the red card early in that second half. So that'll have really impacted them from the keeper. But yeah, a good win, and it's always nice to see a captain score, Piagiani. Yeah, a solid win for Stevenage. Good to see them back on form, and February if you like with a win, although they do have another game on Tuesday. But yeah, I think Carl Piagiani stepping up and sort of showing captain's performance with the goal. It's just exactly what Stevenage need.
Yeah, that's exactly it, isn't it? Then it's one of them. It's like a win at all costs, isn't it? Just to end a 5-game run without a win, and they've done exactly that. Sort of ground out a 1-0 win, and maybe it's a proper Steve Evans performance, isn't it? Like getting a win when you need one. I feel like he can always pull one out of the bag when he needs it, and sort of in a similar vein, Peterborough are back on the winning train. They they won obviously the week before. It's back-to-back wins now. Beating Cambridge in the Cambridgeshire derby at the early kickoff on Saturday. Mason Clark, the only goal scorer in that one. Before we talk about a little bit on Cambridge, because it's a real rough patch for Cambridge at the minute. Just a word on Peterborough, as I said, back-to-back wins, including their victory over Blackpool in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy.
Yeah, well, Peterborough themselves, we've just spoken about Stevenage going through a little bit of a sticky patch. That was also the case with Peterborough. They'd not won in the league in February before this point. You have to go all the way back to the 20th of January for them to get a win in the league. So it'll be a massive morale booster, that's for sure, for Dan Ferguson's men. Yes, it's only 1-0, but 1-0 has the same impact as a 5-0 win. In terms of 3 points on the board, 3 points more for them to sort of solidify their playoff spot. It did look like in the past few weeks that they might have dropped off a little bit. Yes, the gap between them and Barnsley, Bolton has sort of raised, if you like, but they are still up there. They're 3 points off seventh place, so that they're well within the rights to be in that top six. Currently in fifth place, but it's that man again, Mason Clark. So often this season has sort of stepped up when Posh needed most, and it's done exactly that again on Saturday in the early kickoff. I don't think anyone can sort of underestimate the impact that him and Poku between them have had on this Peterborough side this season. Yeah. And that's what you need in games like this. In a derby, as you said, you want your key men to step up, and that's exactly what Mason Clark has done on Saturday to give Peterborough a well-earned 3 points and a much-needed 3 points as well, given their struggling form. Good win for Peterborough in the sort of season, hunting amongst that top six.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's one that's sort of gets them back on track, and winning a derby it's always worth a little bit more, isn't it? In that the feeling that'll give them as a group. On the other side of the coin is obviously Cambridge. They've only got one win in their last 5, and that one was against Carlisle, and we know how much Carlisle are struggling this season. So not amazing. Well, it's not good at all, and it's not sugarcoat it. It's really not a great situation that they're in, and they're one of the ones down the wrong end of the table, and it's I guess the positive they've got is there's 5 or 6 teams that are really struggling that they could still get out of it because there's so many teams down there who just can't pick up points.
Yeah, and another positive to some extent for Cambridge is that in soon they'll have a new manager to come in and hopefully sort of have that new manager bounce, given that Neil Harris left during last week for his former club Millwall. I'm not quite sure any of us expected that. It does mean though that
It's a very odd one, isn't it?
it's a very odd one, yeah, that he'll have managed in all 3 divisions so far this season, starting with Gillingham, then up to Cambridge, and now at Millwall. So that is a little bit strange. I'm not quite sure people saw that one coming. They played at home to Bolton on Tuesday night, and then I think it was just after that Tuesday game on Wednesday morning where Harris got the call. So it's Barry Cole who's in caretaker charge at the moment. He took charge of the defeat to Peterborough, and he'll be in charge for the next 2 games. That's what's been said today. Anyway, in terms of the result, I don't think we should look into the result too much, given Peterborough are a good side, given the quality that they do possess. However, as you mentioned, in terms of the long term, the big picture, it's not looking good for Cambridge. In terms of the form that they've had. You know, the last win they got was against Carlisle. I think you mentioned that earlier, but other than that, it's really not been great for the U's. You know, losing in February. The fact that their only game they've not lost in February is that win away to Carlisle. You know, fortunately for them, there's much worse teams who are on much worse forms in much worse positions. So, despite their bad form, they do sit in 17th place. But that doesn't say a full picture, because although they're in 17th, Burton in 18th and Shrewsbury in 19th all have the same amount of points as Cambridge. And then Charlton 20th on 34, and then Cheltenham in the relegation places with 33. So they're not fully out of it. Yes, at the moment they're 5 points, above the drop zone, if you like, but they're not fully out of it. There are teams below them as a result of goal difference that are doing a lot worse. But they need to do something to pick up their form, and they're going to have to do that without a permanent manager in the next couple of games. So I'm not worried. You know, last season they escaped. You know, it's probably not a miracle, but I don't think anyone saw that coming really last year. When they came to Oakville to play Barnsley, they were rubbish last season. They were just saying it as it is. They're rubbish, and then they somehow miraculously managed to avoid relegation, having spent so long of last season at the bottom. But yeah, I'm not too worried. Yeah, but do you think they'll get dragged into it, or do you think they'll be okay to remain above the drop zone?
I think what you say about the table, sort of put it into context, it's there's 5 teams all on 38 points, and they're bang in the middle of it, with Burton and Shrewsbury just below them. So they're 5 points clear of relegation, like you said, and that's not a good place to be. But there's a buffer, isn't there? There's 3 or 4 teams below them, so that's before you get to the relegation zone. So that's the consolation in it all, isn't it? That a win or 1 or 2 wins and you're clear, aren't you? It's one of those sort of situations. So because it's so condensed down the bottom of the table, so many teams who can be dragged into that relegation fight, and so many teams looking like a Charlton trying to get out of it and trying to really sort of see some daylight. So an interesting one to keep an eye on is sort of in a couple of weeks, maybe it'll be a clearer picture of who are the ones that will get dragged into the relegation struggle. But before we move on to the second half of the show, there's a few little bits to round up on from the weekend. A 5-goal thriller. Can you call it a thriller when all the goals were in the first half? I don't know. But Reading 2, Shrewsbury 3. They're 2 of the other teams on 38 points, actually, alongside Cambridge. All the goals coming in the first half, with the winner in first half injury time for Shrewsbury there. It seems like quite an important 3 points for them. Sort of lifts them up a little bit, puts a bit of daylight between themselves and the relegation zone. Another point for Charlton. They've got 3 draws in a row now, but it's 18 games, staggeringly, without a win But as I said, 3 draws in a row, and those draws have come against, in this one, Portsmouth, obviously the league leaders before that, Bolton, a 3-3 draw, and then Lincoln before that. So 3 teams, one team in Lincoln that's in great form, and 2 teams at the very top of the table, and they've managed to pick up a point against all of them. So obviously, still 18 games we had a win, and Nathan Jones hasn't got his first win yet, but a draw, another draw, sort of puts them in the right direction, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think Charlton have got a big task ahead of them. You know, I know at this moment in time they are just above the relegation zone, but they're only 1 point above it. So there is a massive task for Nathan Jones. Personally, I was surprised when he took over there, but if he can keep them up, then you know I don't think fans will be questioning that too much. But it's a big ask to ask them to stay up and stay away from those relegation places. But a point is a well the result at the weekend against Portsmouth is a point in a good a step in a good direction for Charlton. Less so for Pompey. You know they have still got that lead at the top. I think it's
7
it's
points.
seven.
It is, yeah.
Seven. That's yeah. I couldn't quite do the maths quickly in my head, but 7 points at the top. So you know a point is good. But I think the point is better off for Charlton and for them at the bottom.
Yeah, it's definitely a good point, isn't it, for Charlton, like you say. And lastly, sort of a quick roundup from the some of the other games is another team down the bottom, Port Vale. They're in the relegation zone, 22nd they are. 3 points below the dotted line. And Charlton, that we just talked about, that's Port Vale. They lost 2-0 to Lincoln at the weekend. Lincoln onto an 8-game unbeaten run now, sort of sees them climb into the top half. But Port Vale haven't won. You've got to scroll a long way up to get to their last win, which was in December, the 29th of December. So yet to pick up a win in 2024. Darren Moore, since he's come in, he's lost 3 games on the spin. So a dire situation for them. I'll let you. You look like you've got something to jump in about Darren Moore, Seb. Go on.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, because I think the last time we were on here, me and you, I think we were discussing about the new Port Vale manager.
Did we say it definitely won't be Darren Moore?
Yeah, we both turned our noses at Darren Moore. There was 3 names on the list. I can't remember the first one, but there was Mark
Kennedy. We wanted
Darren
Mark
Moore.
Kennedy. Yeah.
And both me and you sort of turned our noses up at Darren Moore, and then the next day he sort of took the job. But yeah, so me and Sam.
How well are we looking now? 3 losses to start off his job, and at the minute we're looking all right.
Yeah,
exactly. Come the end of the season, we might look like idiots, but I'm sure we'll make ourselves look like idiots for some other reason. If not that one.
Yeah. So yeah, me and Sam last week were sort of on about that, but this is the first time I've sort of back on with you to quiz you on it. How wrong we were. You know?
Well, that's it. There, it still seems a weird one. It does seem a really strange appointment. And
yeah.
Going from the Championship, it could be in League 2 come the end of the season. We'll have to wait and see if he sticks around. I mean, he's got a 5.5-year contract, hasn't he? So maybe he's got some sticking around to do, even if they do get relegated. So the only other note from that one, you asked me about Adam Phillips' goal over. Have you seen Joe Taylor's goal in this Port Vale Lincoln game?
I have. Yeah, I have.
It is glorious. For anyone who hasn't seen it, see if you can find it on Twitter or the highlights somewhere. But basically, the Port Vale, they've got a short free kick just outside their own box, and the captain has put the ball down. And rather than the goalkeeper's gone walkabouts, he's nowhere to be seen. He was like collecting the ball from the edge of the box, and he puts the ball down and points his arm around, and then he passes it not to his centre half partner, but straight to Joe Taylor, who says thank you very much, taps the ball, and then puts it into pretty much an empty net. And I thought it was the most unbelievable goal I'd seen of the weekend. I couldn't believe it. The fact that how he's just not seen Joe Taylor's there just blew my mind. And Joe Taylor's got 2-2 now for Lincoln, so he's hit a bit of a good patch since he joined from Luton. He was very happy to remind us in the sort of the media corps after the Exeter it was, after the last home game, that he hadn't lost in a Lincoln shirt yet. He came in as this good run started. So he's yet to lose in a Lincoln shirt, and 2-2 for him. So a good thing for Lincoln, if not a good thing for Port Vale, like we've said. But we're going to talk about Port Vale a bit more in the second half and their game on Tuesday night as we preview the next round of League One games. So, welcome back, everyone, to the League One podcast here on the Lower League Lock. And now we've looked back over the weekend. We'll look ahead now to the games coming up. We picked a few out, and Seb, I'll let you go first. Which game has caught your eye?
That's a good question, Jamie. For me, I think it'd have to be the match between, involving Derby, because Barnsley aren't playing, so I guess we'll stick another top four team, if you like. Derby have Derby played Charlton. Charlton's last few games has been Derby. I think they've played Portsmouth earlier on as well, and they won at Bolton last weekend. So Charlton have got a really big say on the promotion challenge for promotion. And Derby coming into this off of the back of a defeat at Oakwell. So massive sort of game for Derby. Do they go to a back four? Do they play Dwight Gale as an out-and-out number 9, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on? Or do they stick with the back three that just didn't work at Oakwell? Be quite interesting to see. What will be quite interesting as well is that Charlton have come into this one off the back of a point against Portsmouth. So, a solid result. We mentioned that earlier. If they can continue that and even get another point away at Derby, that would be a great point for Charlton. But it's a big game for Derby. They have to show others that despite losing at Barnsley, it's not affected them at all. You'd imagine it would do, having taken that pretty early lead as well, to then end up losing at Barnsley. They need to come out and show that it's not affected them. But against a good Charlton side that come into this one, after a good point away at Oakwell.
Yeah, it's an interesting game, isn't it? They've, like you said there, Charlton, if they can build on those 3 draws and even another one, even though it's not a win, 4 draws in a row, including draws against 3 of the top 4, it's the top 3, isn't it? Bolton, Derby, and Portsmouth. I mean, that's for a team where they are in the table. You forget that they're called Charlton and they shouldn't be there. That a team just above the relegation zone to pick up 3 draws against the top 3 teams in the table, it's really good. It's really good set of results, and I think it's an interesting one because I could see them picking up a point. I really could, and I don't think I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if they managed to. This is the game maybe they brought a win out of, because Derby, like you said, they could be on have a bit of a knock of confidence after that Barnsley game, coming leading and losing 2-1. It's not something that your confidence isn't going to come out perfect, is it? After losing a game like that against a promotion rival, and so it's an interesting one to keep an eye on for me. And I think maybe Charlton could sort of spring a surprise there. So that's the game you've got your eye on. I guess the game I've got to have my eye on is the game I'm going to. I'm at the Lincoln City game against Shrewsbury on Tuesday night. I don't think this one is one where Shrewsbury will spring a surprise, but I may be wrong. Lincoln 9 points off the playoffs. It's one of those where that doesn't sound a lot, but when you see who's above them, there's 4 or 5 teams above them, and we're going to talk about a couple of them in a minute with Leyton Orient and Blackpool. That there's a real competition for that last playoff spot. A win could take them into 9th if Leyton Orient lose, and it would be 9 games unbeaten if they were to avoid defeat against Shrewsbury, and that would be their longest unbeaten run of the season. So there seems to be a lot riding on it. Shrewsbury, one of the league's lowest scorers. Lincoln, one of Shrewsbury, one of the league's highest conceders, is what I was trying to say. And then Shrewsbury, Lincoln, they just don't score goals. We'll get there eventually. really
yeah.
muddling
Go on.
around the stats
Start
here.
again, Jeremy.
We'll get there.
Start again.
Start again.
Start again.
And we
Go
get
on.
there. What I'm
Should we do the
trying
whole
to
thing
say.
again? Should we go back 30 minutes and
What I'm trying to say really uneloquently is that Lincoln don't score, and Shrewsbury
no?
don't concede loads. Really,
Yeah.
it works both
Sorry.
ways.
Yeah. I
Um,
got you got me that confused. I didn't know. Yeah.
I'm I'm confused and it's contagious. But either way, Lincoln should be winning this game. I think anyway. I'm interested to see what you think. Maybe I'll see if my stat was right as you try and pick the bones out of what I was trying to say.
Yeah, well, what I got from you is that Shrewsbury don't concede a lot, but Lincoln don't necessarily score a lot either. Is that right? I don't know.
That's what I
But
was going
yeah,
for.
okay, that's fine. Yeah, so you did say it right. Lincoln, a bit of an odd one with Lincoln really, because rightly so, they probably
You are.
should be happy
Well, I'll
with
interject
10th
with
place.
the actual
Go on,
facts.
go on.
Shrewsbury don't score a lot, and Lincoln don't concede a lot. So I was the opposite way around.
Right, so you're halfway there. You're halfway there.
I was just the opposite way around.
We'll give you half points, Jamie. We'll give you half points.
Apologies.
No. Yeah, as I was saying, Lincoln, I don't think they're gonna push for the playoffs,
No.
but they're not anywhere near the relegation places. So it sounds really odd saying this, but it's just a case of seeing out the season, really. I think for
Yeah.
Lincoln, picking up as many positive results as possible, and they'll be hoping for the game against Shrewsbury that they can do that. Who themselves are in a bit of a frictious position, if you like, in the league table, just 5 points from safety, 2 places above Cheltenham in 21st. But yeah, Lincoln, they have come to form a little bit, as you said, beating Port Vale in the last match. Prior to that, beating Exeter and Fleetwood and Burton before that as well. So lots of good wins, lots of good points on the board as well. They might be slightly disappointed with the point that they got earlier on in February away at Charlton. But other than that, I think February's looked pretty good for Lincoln, and they'll be hoping to finish it off with another win at home to Shrewsbury.
Yeah, I think the only sort of blip you can come up with is that Charlton game, like you said, and that was Nathan Jones. It was his first home game in charge, so I guess that's the thing that goes against that. And I think it's 4 wins in 5 for them now. They're just in really, really good form, and they're playing some nice football, and they're in a good spot. But like you said, I mean, there's a bit of optimism about Lincoln. You can sort of feel it that the fans think they can get playoff football, and Michael Scribala has refused to say no. He's not said we're aiming for playoffs, but he's also not said we're going to finish mid-table. You sort of get what I mean. And so there's a lot of optimism about, and I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think they'll do it, but it's an interesting one. I think it's a little bit more exciting than just they'll finish mid-table is what it was last season. There's a little bit still left to fight for, and we'll see how long it's sort of the hype train remains. A couple of losses and the wheels are off the track, aren't they? But it's an interesting one to keep an eye on, at least for the next few weeks. In terms of the playoffs, though, sort of the biggest game in terms of the chasing pack is Leyton Orient hosting Blackpool, 8th versus 9th. It's a fight for that last playoff spot that Oxford and Stevenage are also fighting for. In terms of the form for the two of them, Blackpool have been a little bit up and down. We mentioned a big up was that win at the weekend, wasn't it, against Bolton that we talked about in the first half. Leyton Orient were fantastic in January, saw Richie Wellens pick up the Manager of the Month award, but February has been a little bit more patchy. A win over Oxford for them has sort of boosted their playoff hopes, and it's just a huge game, isn't it, in terms of the playoff contention, and does it get much bigger in terms of the playoff sort of shout?
Potentially, it doesn't. No, I mean, we're hyping this up, but it could finish 0-0.
No, don't be like that, Seb. Don't be like that.
No, I don't think it will be 0-0, but there's always a chance.
1-1.
I guess that's the case for every game. But
Yeah.
the two good sides, on the day when they're both attacking and on it, they are two good quality sides that do have good options in all areas of the pitch. In all honesty, really, Blackpool, as you said, coming into this one off of the back of a great win at home to Bolton. This time they are away from home, having to travel down to London to face Leyton Orient, who won last weekend. You mentioned it was George Moncur whose goal sealed the comeback victory away at Oxford. So yeah, it's sort of the best of the rest match, isn't it? Really, the two just outside the playoff spots. Orient on 51 points, Blackpool on 53, and Oxford who were the last spot in the playoff spot have 57. So they are a couple of points away from being anywhere near Oxford, in that last playoff spot. But certainly, I think the winner of this match will be the most likely to push on to try and get that last spot. Because they do say if you want to sort of progress, you have to be winning the teams around you, and that's certainly what you're hoping one of the sides will be doing on Tuesday night if it doesn't finish 0-0.
I think maybe you've I don't know, cast a sort of shadow over it. It'll be 0-0. We can all blame you.
Yeah, 0-0 over
Or
it. Yeah.
we'll tell.
I don't want it to be 0-0, but I'm just thinking, two attacking teams, two teams that do play good football. Orient are on a good run, Blackpool on a good run. I can just see it sort of petering out really, and the two teams cancelling each other out.
Yeah, I think it's one to keep an eye on. I think it'd be an interesting game, that one.
Oh, definitely.
And
Definitely.
yeah, definitely. We've got one more game to talk about in terms of what's coming on Tuesday night. But before we get there, the other games are Burton hosting bottom side Carlisle, Wigan against Bolton in a sort of a Lancashire derby, I guess you could call it there. Stevenage playing host to Cambridge, and Cheltenham travelling to Wickham, and they really need a win, don't they, to sort of pull themselves away from that bottom four. But the bottom four, two of the teams in it, Port Vale and Fleetwood, play each other, and I mean, absolute textbook definition of a relegation 6-pointer. This one, 22nd against 23rd. It's one that sort of brings a lot of interest with it for me, in two teams that are not in good form. I mean, they won't be where they were in the table if they're in good form. They did meet in January, and Fleetwood won 3-0, but obviously the reverse fixture over at Port Vale this one, it was a totally different game. 4 games without a win, Charlie Adams' side. Port Vale, Darren Moore's 9 games without a win, and as we mentioned earlier, Darren Moore yet to pick up a point in charge at Vale. So a really key game in the relegation battle. We talked about a key game up the top of the table, a really crucial game at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, massively. So as you said, doesn't really get much bigger than this. A proper relegation 6-pointer. You spoke about Port Vale's form. I still honestly don't see it getting any better with the game against Fleetwood. Fleetwood drawing at Exeter in the last match. And to be fair, prior to that, had picked up a little bit of form, beating the likes of Bristol Rovers, Port Vale before that, and then drawing to Wickham, which is a good point. So they had picked up, a little bit of good form, sort of back end of January into the start of February. It seems to have petered off a little bit, but Fleetwood do have some good players. We spoke about this many times on this podcast, and I just can't see Port Vale getting anything from it really. I think if Darren Moore had made an impact, we would have started to see the results fall in their favour, but by now, and we've just not seen that. Did you say 8 without a win for Port Vale?
9 without a win.
Sorry, 9. Yeah. So that's
just add another one.
Yeah, well, I could just see it get to 10. Really, I can't see them getting anything out of the game. Yeah, So I'm going to have to go really for another Fleetwood win. What about you? Do you think Darren Moore can finally work his magic and see a Port Vale win, or are you not so sure?
Well, I'd love to sort of create a bit of jeopardy and go the opposite way, but I agree with you. I think Fleetwood are the. If you were to pick a winner, back a horse in this one, you would be backing Fleetwood. I don't think, even though they're at home, Port Vale just seem to be in such a dire state at the minute. And even though they brought in Darren Moore and there was so much, I guess, optimism around the fan base that it's quite the coup. Sorry, someone coming down from the Championship to a team at the wrong end of League One. And he's a high profile manager, Darren Moore. Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield, can't forget Doncaster, obviously West Brom before that. But he's one of those. His stock seems to have fallen so much. I mean, when he was at Doncaster, he was doing really well for us, and we were top of the league. And he left us for Sheffield Wednesday, and then got them relegated, and then obviously got them back up through that unforgettable playoff win against Peterborough in the semi-finals, and then against, sorry to remind you, but against your lot in the final.
Here we go.
But then left in the summer and gone to Huddersfield and did nothing at Huddersfield, did he? He had an awful time at Huddersfield, and they're sort of in sort of a rough patch off the back of that now. And he's dropped down all the way down to Port Vale, and it's a. I mean, I was really surprised, really surprised when they appointed him. If it's a good appointment, I'm not 100% sure. A relegation battle in League One. Do you want Darren Moore at the helm? I don't know, but that's the tools they've got to work with, isn't it? And they need to start pulling wins out of somewhere. And you look at this, I feel middle end of February. It's too early to be calling games must win, but this is as close as it gets without being must win, I think, for both of them, but especially Port Vale being someone that just can't seem to buy a win. And Fleetwood have sort of shown a little bit of promise in patches and picked up a few decent points. And I mean, a win for them, that puts them in a good position. Of course, they'll jump above Port Vale and they'll be looking up rather than sort of mellowing in the relegation zone. So, like we've said a couple of times, just a really huge game, this one, and a battle of experienced manager against an inexperienced manager. It'll be interesting to see sort of which way it goes.
Yeah, a massive game at the bottom, really is. Both teams in pretty poor teams, but it will be interesting. I hate to be the cursor, but again, another one I can just see Peter out for a 0-0. You know,
stop predicting 0-0s.
Yeah, just
next you'll tell me Lincoln will be a 0-0, but I believe that.
Yeah. There's two sides that just put struggling for quality in front of goal, really.
Yeah.
I could see it happening, but I'll not speak too much.
Well, goalless draw, Seb strikes again. So it's an interesting one. It's one to keep an eye on, and I'm sure Callum and Sam will be talking about that on Thursday as they look ahead to the weekend. We'll be back on Monday, same time, same place. Myself and Seb. If the flu stays away for another week, I'll be back again next week. Before we go, where can everyone follow? What's your Twitter, Seb, so that people can?
It's a great question. If you want to follow me on X or with Twitter, I can be found at Seb the letter E Jones, so Seb E Jones on X. Form with Twitter. What about yourself?
J Johnson _16 is my Twitter. Same thing there. Twitter X. Do we have to call it X these days? I think. But,
well, yeah.
Follow the Lower League Look on Twitter /X as well. And we will see you again next Monday for another League One review.